Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to the loading screen. This is our second episode here. We've taken a couple weeks off, let the news in the esports space swell up for a little bit, and now we are back with a bunch more headlines and smaller bits of news for you. I am Getster. Joining me are Diatonic and Soren. How you fellas doing today?
Yeah, I'm doing very good. I'm very excited. We are hitting the very end of the year here, so we're in the final stretch. There's a lot of the biggest esports are kind of hitting their year-end events or their conclusions for the year. So there's a lot of news, and there's also already esports kind of gearing up for next year. So there's a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we're kind of at the end of a lot of big tournaments. I just booked tickets at a room for DreamHack Atlanta. So first time I've gotten to go to a DreamHack event. Can't wait for that. But yeah, I mean, it's always busy, especially the more you widen the net, the more you get to hear about and the more you learn about. So yeah, staying busy for sure.
For sure. And speaking of staying busy, one scene in particular has been extremely tumultuous so far. And let's jump into our first story of the night, Apex Legends. If y'all haven't been aware of Apex Legends recently, it's been a very unstable environment. A lot of teams are going through changes right before the last week of Pro League, which happened a few weeks ago, right before regional finals, which happened today. Rosters are being shaken up left and right. Falcons, the winners of the first LAN of the year, dropped their IGL of 0 and picked up Gildersons, previously of NRG. Zachmazer left Virtus Pro, one of the best teams in North America, and was replaced by Emtee, an Australian player, who left Shopify Rebellion and was replaced by Zaptoh, who used to play for TSM. As of the 11th, Zach is teamless and will be looking for a new team to play within the LCQ. Zero, Sikezz and Fuhhnq are teaming as an orgless roster called ZZ. Qadsiah, over in the APAC South region, I believe, dropped Strafing Flame, their IGL, and picked up Kimchilee, a player from the NA region. Albralelie, one of the longest standing professional players in the entire game, left his team of Stallions to play with Stay Naughty and Shubi, and after 1 week with his new team, he announced that he was LFT. Cersei, formerly of the Kansas City Pioneers, and most recently seen playing as a substitute for Team Orchid, joined Crook and Enemy, and those three were signed by Fire Strays, an organization that, to my knowledge, has also been making moves in Marvel Rivals and such recently. ImMadness went LFT, leaving Skittlecakes and Rambo. Albralelie, who I mentioned earlier, joined in his stead. Madness was unable to find a team before the roster lock, leaving him on the outside looking in until the LCQ happens. Part of the reason that all of these moves have been happening is because there's so many rosters that don't have the necessary champions points to comfortably make it to the end of year champs event in Sapporo this coming January. As of this recording, everybody's regional finals are over. Your winners in APAC South were Gen.G. I lied a little bit. They won Pro League. They got first over the weeks of play in group stage. Boogie Boarders were the ones to win regional finals. UNLIMIT won Pro League, and SYRALE won regional finals in APAC North. Alliance won both in EMEA because they're just the best team in the region by far. And shockingly, in Americas, Shopify Rebellion managed to win both despite going on a little bit of a struggling streak recently. There's been a lot going on leading up to the LCQ that's going to happen in a few weeks here, but after that happens, there's not going to be a lot of action in Apex until January, when we're going back to Sapporo for champions.
Yeah, Apex to me is a little bit outside of my wheelhouse personally. But from what I do see, because I'm a 100 Thieves fan, and 100 Thieves has had many different rosters.
Yes.
And from what I have seen, in the past, and also from the 100 Thieves scene, I think Apex has to be known for one of the esports that has the most chopping and changing of rosters. It feels like every time I know about something happening in Apex, obviously as an outsider looking in, every time there's some new information, it's a big team has been split up or big name players are being brought together. It feels like every team is just like toying with puzzle pieces, trying to find the perfect set that works, and it seems like there's always a lot of disruption throughout the entire year until they finally find that one. So I'm not that surprised, but it is very impressive to see how many different rosters are currently still up in the air right before this big.
Yeah, and no doubt the teams that do manage to stay together, that creates a little bit of an advantage for them. If you're shuffling your roster around, you got to rebuild that chemistry kind of from square one all over again. So it almost seems to me in a game like Apex where there is a lot of roster movement, because I remember they had a roster mania round just a couple months ago around the same time that Rivals did too. So I feel like a game like Apex is very much a game of really trying to find your footing and just sticking with a team that works best for you.
For sure. I would love to, in future years of the Apex Legends Global Series, see Respawn and EA try to find a way to incentivize teams to stick together for as long as possible. That has been one of my big issues with competitive Apex, and frankly, a lot of competitive battle royales for a very long time. Fortnite has had this issue for ages.
It's also very similar in the Warzone scene. I know that. I feel like it almost feels like it's more of a symptom of when it is a team-based esport, but not like a 5-man or 6-man roster esport. It seems like the smaller the team is, the much more willing teams are willing to go, okay, we'll take one piece out and put another piece in, trying to make those micro adjustments, which means there's always a lot of movement because one player can completely shape the entire structure of the team. It is very much, I think, a battle royale thing, and I think it's also just a smaller team environment thing. But yeah, it's in almost every single one of the battle royales that I'm familiar.
I do feel like it makes it harder for people, for fans to get behind these teams, right? Like in a game like Apex that's so small and there's so much movement, it really does feel like the brand or the logo or the org itself is really important to that brand identity, more so than the players are in some other games like you guys were talking about, 5-man, 6-man squads and other games. So yeah, it's really interesting. I haven't really followed any super small squad esports like that. So I already feel like it's a big thing for a lot of other esports. A lot of teams be shifting very frequently. So it's interesting to hear that Apex is like an even faster moving game than that.
I believe we mentioned a little bit of Marvel Rivals earlier, something about DreamHack Atlanta. I think we got some news about that. So why don't you give us the details on that one, Daya?
Yeah, there's a lot happening in Rivals as always, man. Brand new esport, a lot of big headlines. But the biggest thing is that the second stage of Marvel Rivals Ignite, the Tier 1 Pro Tournament, is as of the recording currently on its final game. NA is wrapping up grand finals. Envy taking on 100 Thieves. They are dead even right now, one map apiece so far in the best of 7. So in spite of that, we do know all of the teams that are going to be participating in the next LAN tournament at DreamHack Atlanta. First Rivals LAN tournament that's going to have an actual live audience, and I will be there too. So hey, awesome.
Nice.
NA is wrapping up this week, playoffs, but we have all 4 teams invited. So 100 Thieves and Envy are, of course, going to be there. They're in grand finals. But also FlyQuest, who's had a big redemption arc this stage compared to stage 1, is going to be there, along with DarkZero, the team that used to be Team Magnets in the early days of Rivals Esports. Notably, no Sentinels in that list. They've been a pretty marquee team for this region, but unfortunately just did not make the cut. They had a really hard bracket, and a lot of stage 2 has been a rebuild for them. They lost Zachmazer and Karova, who are 2 game changer players for that team. They're now on DarkZero, so they had to bring in a couple new players. They brought in McGravy of Overwatch fame to coach the team. So a lot of stage 2 for them has been rebuilding. Across the rest of the board, though, for all the other regions, EMEA, what is most people consider to be the deadliest region in Rivals, they had 3 invites on the table. Those went to Virtus Pro, who won stage 2, Citadel Gaming, formerly Berber Patapim, NAVI as well, who used to be Rad Esports, or for you real old heads out there, Team 1. Probably the 3 strongest teams in EMEA without a doubt in the mix there at DreamHack Atlanta. Asia also has been pretty crazy. This stage, some very familiar names. We got Crazy Raccoon, Gen.G, Reject, but of those teams, Gen.G did not make the cut this time. Asia's had a lot of tumultuous roster changes coming into this stage, but it's actually Crazy Raccoon that won the stage, and then Rejects, who won stage 1. They are the 2 coming from Asia to go to DreamHack. Oceania, pretty interesting stuff happening in Australian Rivals too. The team that was formerly Ground Zero Gaming's roster in stage 1, they parted ways. They ran unsigned as staying together as a team, and they actually won stage 2 as well. They beat Ground Zero to do it. So kind of reminded them like, hey, you guys remember why you hired us in the first place? That's why. So they're going to be at DreamHack as well. And then rounding out the whole picture is China, which is always kind of a mysterious region. The China tournaments are all broadcast on Bilibili. There's no Twitch stream or anything. But OUG, who also competed in the mid-season finals LAN, is making it, along with Aconyx, the team that won the season 2 MRC in the China region. So back during the Marvel Rivals Championship, the in-game tournament, in season 2, they offered invites to Ignite for teams that placed highest in that tournament. So they made it through that and then made it to LAN as well. So kind of a tear there, but a lot of big money matches for sure. You know, there's more orgs entering the rival space. You know, NAVI, this was kind of their first stage out with that old Team 1 roster, and not as many surprises as I was thinking we were going to see, but definitely Sentinels not making it out of stage 2 NA is probably the biggest one for me.
Yeah, I know, as someone who also follows the scene pretty darn well, it really did feel like, you know, almost the entirety of the EMEA you could have predicted. I mean, that at least the top 3. I think you could have chopped and changed any of them, and I think anyone would have been like, yeah, I could see that happening. I do agree with you. I think that Sentinels roster not making it, and I think the biggest thing about that failure to qualify is the fact that the team that knocked them out was DarkZero, which has the 2 players that left Sentinels. They picked up Amazing and they picked up Karova, and they were serious game changers throughout the series, and also just for the whole roster. I think they had a little bit of a rough start for the qualifying into the playoffs, but they got over the line. But they were looking really good once the playoffs began. I will say, as we're talking about playoffs, 100 Thieves. You guys know I'm a 100 Thieves guy. I'm so excited. I have it up on the second monitor. I'm so excited. They are hitting stride exactly when it matters. So I'm really excited to see. I'm also going to be at DreamHack, so I'm hoping and praying there's a chance that I can see 100 Thieves take home the trophy.
We need you guys to take a picture at DreamHack Atlanta, and then we can like poorly Photoshop me in.
Well, we'll stand like arms length apart, and we'll put you right in the middle. There you go.
I love this idea, and then we can show it off in like a future episode for sure. That'd be awesome. You guys have talked about Sentinels enough. I was gonna come on with this whole bit about like, where's my Sentinels, because that's my team right there, you know. But I still got Overwatch players to root for. Envy is full of them, and
True.
2 of the teams that made it out of Asia, being Reject and Crazy Raccoon, both of them are extremely full of former Overwatch players. So I got teams to root for, even if it wasn't the one closest to my heart. I'm happy for the teams that made it there, because I mean, last time we talked about rivals, we were talking about the fact that we're already getting that first wave of like homegrown talent that started with Marvel Rivals rather than coming from a different game. And this is happening, I think, a little bit sooner than it did with Valorant, for example. So I'm very excited to see how this goes.
Yeah, and I kind of said this between stage 1 and stage 2, and I'm going to say it again as Ignite wraps up for the year. You know, the talent pool is growing. There are really good teams coming into the scene and making a splash, you know, especially in EMEA. There were a few unsigned teams just barely outside the cutoff. You had Chopped, who basically was making headlines across the board. Everybody kind of knew them as like these king slayers. They're beating all these amazing EMEA teams. FaZe as well, kind of a conglomerate of some other players that have been playing competitive rivals. And then Insomnia, who's played since stage 1 as well. All 3 of those teams are really in the mix for those LAN invites. So as that talent pool continues to grow, I think we're going to continue to see more and more surprises and upsets, like with Sentinels. You know, teams are going to fall behind a little bit. There's going to be these hardcore grinders that aren't in Ignite this year, but are going to show up next year and kind of go out there and wreck some face. So, you know, it's a really exciting time for a game that's still kind of getting off the ground and building that talent roster.
If you do have further thoughts regarding Marvel Rivals, Ignite, ALGS, anything like that, please leave them down in the comments. I'm going to read all of them. And I'm going to reply to all of them that come up for sure. So get involved, be active. It's going to be awesome. We're going to be here. We're going to be doing this for a while now. Now, next up, we have some news regarding a certain, a small indie title called League of Legends. You might have heard of it before. Soren, how you feeling about this one, man?
It's been a weird 2 weeks. It's been a really weird 2 weeks.
Oh yeah.
Obviously, like the big headliner news is the fact that Sentinels is going to be joining the LCS. That has, I believe, officially been confirmed. I don't even know if we speculated it, because I remember going on a massive rant about 100 Thieves possibly staying in. That looks less and less likely, though I am still praying. But yeah, Sentinels is joining the LCS. Rob Moore did confirm it, quote saying, "This is the next stage in Sentinels." They did also have a very trolly video where they had Double Lift come on and announce it.
I remember
that he's not, and then announced that he's not involved with Sentinels whatsoever. He's not co-streaming. He was just there to say, "Hey, we're joining."
It was so
Sentinels
funny.
giving their fans heart attacks at every opportunity. That is a massive piece of news. That is a big organization, one of the biggest organizations, very quickly just growing and getting involved in so many different esports. I think it is easily one of the top 3 in esports as a whole, joining the LCS. I know there is a little bit of talk about how the fact that they are not paying for a spot in the LCS. That's a big piece of news, because obviously everyone else previous had to buy in. So we do see Riot moving away from that franchising model, because it obviously has not been all that sustainable for the last couple of years. But that's the biggest piece of news that everyone's talking about. But there's also been a lot of stuff in scene that, if you were following, you definitely are going, what is happening with League of Legends right now? Obviously Brippo being the biggest name of it here, definitely causing a little bit of controversy and getting themselves into a little bit of trouble. I believe on stream they said, quote, "There is a time in the month where you, quote, women, should not be playing competitive games as a woman, stating menstrual cycles as a competitive disadvantage." Which I don't think I need to say messed up of a statement that is. And pretty much the entire community went and said, "What are you on about?" It was not even just in League of Legends. I know also big names like Armori. I think you saw it, Diatonic. Armori got into mix of the conversation. Frankly, in my opinion, a pretty disgusting sentiment to say. It is being treated like that. I will say he was suspended for, I believe, multiple games in the LTA playoffs. He also, I believe, had his wages get donated to organizations that help support women in esports. It was a big misstep for him as well. It also hindered the world scene a little bit, because they actually had him planned to be a part of the world's music video, and it had to be delayed as they removed all presence of him in the video. So that's probably the second biggest. I'll kind of run through the last two because they're crazy, but we did have a cheating scandal. The LTA playoffs happened. Estral Esports top laner Summit, who is actually, I think, a well-known name in the scene. He got caught on stream in the background, so they had a technical delay, so they could see the boot camp happening in the background, and he was spotted in the background with a monitor having a previous team fight from that game. So it's not even previous in the series, it's previous in that game. So that was a massive piece of news. I believe Disguise still ended up winning, so Estral didn't really get anything out of it, but I believe they got suspended for the rest of the LTA playoffs. Summit, that is, not Disguised. I think Disguise actually won as of today. And then the final bit of the chaos that's been this scene is the fact that Riot Games is launching an investigation into players competing under Forsaken at EMEA Masters 2025 after the players displayed inappropriate behavior, which was taking off their pants on a Twitch live stream to celebrate a win. I said it again, it's been a very weird week or 2 weeks for the League of Legends scene. I don't know what happened, but everyone started taking something, because we were pretty good. We were normal. The LTA was back. Everyone was on high horses. And it's like we were in a race car. We took a very sharp turn left into a wall. But Worlds is around the corner, so that's good news, I guess.
Yeah, that's true. Obviously, emotions are going to be ranging right now, from excitement about Sentinels, one of the most popular organizations in North America, joining the LCS, which is coming back. A lot of really exciting stuff for North American fans. And then you have Wipo. Why did you say that? Dude, just shut up. Respectfully.
Yeah.
That's just why. There's no reason to be saying that in any context. I don't know, man. Women in esports have been through so much already. It's just comments and sentiments like that that make it harder for them. This is the exact reason that we need leagues like Valorant Game Changers and Overwatch is Calling All Heroes and ESL Impact, which we'll talk about a little bit later.
Yeah, you guys know that gif of the dude walking in with the pizzas and his apartment's on fire and everybody's freaking out? Yeah. Welcome to the LCS, Sentinels. glad you made it just in time. man.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yup. Moving on here. We have a bit of news about Rainbow Six. I have recently started commentating because I've finally found opportunities to do so. I've been watching R6 for years. I love this game dearly, and we have a lot of news regarding the Munich Major right now. Specifically, I'm mostly going to be talking about the North American region here, because right now we know all 4 teams that are heading to the Munich Major from North America and from the Pacific region. EMEA and South America are still currently up in the air and will be completed in the coming days. We do know a couple of the teams that are making top 4, but not all of them. So let's just start by talking about NA, because there is a lot to talk about here. They ended up having an interesting mix of qualifying teams with M80, Shopify Rebellion, and Space Station Gaming, and all of those were like, okay, yeah, these make sense. These are like definitively top 4 teams. But surprisingly, the 4th team to make it in was Wildcard. Out of nowhere, they were able to qualify for a major event for the first time since 6 Invitational in 2021, when the organization was still fielding a roster in the OCE region. They didn't even get to go to that SI because the Australian government wouldn't allow them to leave. So they qualified for Munich over squads like Oxygen and DarkZero. Oxygen is the especially egregious one here because they placed 2nd in the group stage, only dropping 1 match to M80 in a 7-5 barn burner. It's also worth noting that Oxygen's player Adam was the highest rated player in the entirety of stage 2 of the NAL. Despite this, OXG goes 0-2 in the playoff bracket, losing to Shopify and Wildcard without taking a map from either of them. DarkZero, on the other hand, them missing the Munich Major marks the first time since the 2022 Jönköping Major that the organization has missed a major event. DZ, much like OXG, goes 0-2 in the playoff bracket, only managing to take 1 map off of Shopify before getting swept by M80. Now, the bracket for North America is complete at this point, and the champions are actually M80, despite getting sent to losers by Space Station after getting a bye to the 2nd round of winners bracket. They managed to run the gauntlet. They beat DarkZero, Wildcard, Shopify Rebellion, and Space Station in a revenge match grand final where they swiftly won both of the maps, taking Chalet 7-5 and Bank with an absurdly dominant 7-2. And then, again, as I mentioned earlier, EMEA and South America have confirmed 2 teams each, those being Team Secret and Falcons, and FaZe Clan and Furia, respectively, with the final 2 slots in each region to be determined in the coming days. The major in Munich will begin on the 8th of November and run all the way through the 16th. This genuinely should be one of the best majors Rainbow Six has seen in a while. I am extremely excited for this one.
Very, very similar for the APAC scene for me, where I'm not as familiar with R6. I tried getting into it a couple years ago, but that was also, I believe, when R6 was struggling a little bit. I don't think it was doing as well numbers-wise. There was a lot of people having complaints with the game. But I know over the last year and a half, there has been kind of a resurgence and diehards really gunning for this game and saying that it is firmly back. And I mean, I could see it, as even though I'm not as familiar with the game, just the representation of the teams. I know almost every single one of these teams, and they're all big names. Honestly, I was already looking to maybe get back into R6 or Siege, and this looks like it is going to be a banger of a tournament, like you said. This feels like, even though we talked about it a little bit before, where, in 5-6 man roster or esports, a lot of times it does feel a lot more like the org draws more attention than the players. This feels like the tournament where if I looked at it, even if I didn't know what the esport was, I would look at this bracket and go, okay, this is gonna be a banger of a tournament, because all of these teams, I'm assuming, are gonna be insanely good.
Yeah, I mean, it makes me feel like it's the local Chinese buffet that's just a banger out of nowhere. Like, everything is good. There's just so much stuff that you recognize. Like, especially, it's surprising to hear about DarkZero, because when they jumped into Rivals, I had heard of them from Rainbow Six. I'm like, oh yeah, they're kind of like a Siege. I know that's one of their big ones. So yeah, to hear that they missed the mark is kind of surprising. But I know that they kind of, I think the update was like Siege X or something, right? It was kind of the recent kind of overhaul of the game, and I know that was a pretty positive change, I think. like it's really great to see. I played quite a bit of Siege when it first came out, but that's been so long now. The game's been going for a long time. It feels like a good jumping on point if you're kind of lapsed like I am, or if you're somebody that's new and kind of interested in Siege. I've never paid too much attention to the esports side of it, but the game itself is fun. And yeah, man, if you want to know like who's who, it seems like Munich is kind of the one to watch.
Keep an eye on particularly, I believe FaZe Clan is the one that I had winning this tournament. It's either FaZe or Furia, honestly, at this point. Like it's one of those two, almost certainly. We have one more like super big piece of news to go over though, and that's a little bit about Valorant. So take it away.
Yeah, Valorant. We were talking about we're in the home stretch. A lot of big tournaments are either coming to an end or coming up here. Valorant's championship for the regular scene. Obviously, Game Changers is still, I believe, is going to be starting sometime in November. But the Valorant champions for the VCT circuit is over. Your VCT champions are NRG. I think it's a surprise to a lot of people. We were talking about how a two-team region for the longest time was G2. It was Sentinels, and they were looking good, but it was two-team region, and both of them crash out. Playoffs don't have good runs, and NRG just kind of smacked everyone they came up against. They were incredibly strong from start to finish. I think it really says a lot. I believe they took down, they were the team that took down MIBR, which I found out even more information about that MIBR OSPAS team, where OSPAS broke the kill record for a best of 3.
Yeah,
I think almost 3 games in a row, and 2 of them were in NRG, and they still lost against this team. They were a little crazy. It was. And as we did get to the finals, which I think was like pretty much the last game that we didn't get to see before the last loading stream was filmed, it looked like it was going to be a slaughter. It was a 2-0 very, very quickly. They were going into map number 3. It was 11-1 in favor of NRG. It looked like it was going to be a slaughter across the board. But then they remembered they're going up against Fnatic. This is the same Fnatic that won lock-in off of crazy upset after crazy upset. They actually break the record for the biggest comeback in Valorant VCT history, coming back from 11-1 to win game 3. They win game 4, sending it to a game 5 where NRG finally sat back and went, guys, what are we doing? We're NRG. And they did go to Sunset, which I believe was not a very good map for Fnatic. And in the end, NRG do close it out. I think it was 13-6. So not as competitive as game 5, but it became a very competitive series when it was looking like it was going to be a slaughter. Notably, it was a sad day for Fnatic. We're one of 3 teams that made it to all 5 Valorant champions in their history. Boaster, I have to give a massive shout out to. There was a lot of scenes of Boaster crying. It was a very emotional moment. He, fun fact, is the only player to make it to all 5 Valorant champions on the single roster Fnatic. There was also talk prior, in some of the interviews and post games that was sounding like he might be retiring, or if the game didn't go the way he thought it was going to, he might retire. Very happily, that is not the case. It was addressed very quickly in the post match interview, and despite being very sad, he made it very clear he is not done. He is going to run it back one more time at the pool. So we are not losing Boaster, who is one of the biggest names in the scene. I can't even imagine what the Valorant scene, let alone Fnatic, look like without that man at the helm. But NRG, incredible performance. They also win with 3 franchising rookies. They used to be in tier 1 teams prior to the franchising, but since franchising, they've been in tier 2, including the MVP for the finals and the rookie of the year, Brock, and his Odin, who just drug his team over the line in some games when they weren't hitting their best. Also, Ethan, we were talking about OSPAS being the GOAT. We have Boaster talking about being the GOAT IGL, and no one talks about Ethan joining the ranks of Boaster, 10, Saucy, Meteor, a handful of others, pretty much the entirety of the Fnatic team, but being one of the very few 2-time international winners and being the one and only standing at the top of the pillar 2-time VCT champion, having won back in 2023 with EG. He's the lone man at the top holding double trophies there. As for the rest of VCT news, VCT EMEA, 10 teams were invited to submit applications to replace Koi, who lost their franchising spot a couple weeks ago. Gentlemates achieved the high score. Gentlemates will be a part of the VCT EMEA circuit until the end of 2026, when the partnership contracts for all VCT teams are set to expire. So a lot of news for champions, a little bit of news for the EMEA region. But Valorant, I mean, ending on a banger, at least for the VCT scene. We do have game changers still coming up in about a month. But
obviously, huge congrats to NRG. I don't think a lot of people had them winning the entire thing going into this one. Most people were thinking, oh yeah, this should probably go the way of like a G2, maybe a Paper X again. Be it's Heretics time to shine. Not a whole lot of people were talking about NRG and their championship conversation. And yet, here they are. They're the only team from the NA region to do better than like 5th, 6th place, because MIBR.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, that's where MIBR landed. You brought up game changers and the fact that that's going to be coming up pretty soon here. Definitely keep an eye out on that one. I am very excited to see if Shopify Rebellion are going to be able to continue their streak of dominance over the game changer scene. Obviously, last year they did it with Fluorescent on the roster. Fluorescent made a proper tier 1 debut with Apex, and then left halfway through for personal reasons, and then a whole lot of personal drama happened, and it remains to be seen if she'll ever actually make a proper return to tier 1. But in her stead, Shopify picked up Dodonut, who is a great player in and of herself, coming from Thailand, and I am very excited to see if that roster is able to run it back in Seoul for the first time.
Yeah, and very specifically with Boaster. I don't know if you saw the clip, but there was a scene where someone won a 1v3, and Boaster got up out of his seat with the cheer, went backwards, and started breakdancing and spinning around on stage.
Oh, that's Boaster. Okay, I've seen the clip.
That's
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
That's the goat.
Oh
the man is entertainment through and through, which is why I was like, I can't even imagine what the scene is like without him, because he brings so much life. If there was any player that would not just be willing but want you to get that scene, because you know in the back of his head, because he's also a competitor, there's got to be that drive of, take this picture, remember this when I win my next trophy. Remember when I am lifting this trophy next year.
We didn't really have a whole lot of time to talk about Pacific during this section either. Obviously, PRX gets 4th place, DRX gets 3rd. But again, any comments about that, put them down below. Moving on, we got a whole lot of smaller headlines here to go through. And I mean, there's a lot of them. In some very baffling news, Capcom has announced that both the Capcom Cup and the Street Fighter League World Championship will stream on a pay-per-view model. This has been met with an absurd amount of backlash from the FGC, with many people arguing that this goes directly against the grassroots nature of the community. Price for a bundle that would allow one to watch both the Capcom Cup and the SFL Championship is 6,000 yen, roughly $40 US. What are we doing, Capcom? What, like, are you kidding me? In previous years, you have made plenty of money by selling cosmetic packs during the time of year when Capcom Cup rolls around. Why are you now suddenly requiring people to, instead of paying for optional content that they might want in their game, to now switching to a model where they have to spend $40 to watch your game? Nobody's gonna buy that. And if they are, one person's gonna buy that. And then the entire local scene is gonna show up to that one person's house for a watch party. You are not making that much money off of this. Don't ever do this again, Capcom.
I'm not going to be like, I'm bored, I'm going to try a whole new game out that I've never seen before. I'm going to pay $40 for it. You are just kneecapping yourself and not allowing any people who are just looking to get into the scene to observe the highest level of competition. And I feel like that is just idiotic to me. I don't know why you would do that and kneecap yourself in that way.
Yeah, I mean, I understand charging for cosmetics and things like that to put back into the prize pool to give out to the players. This is going to stop people from watching altogether.
With $40, you can just buy 2 copies of Hollow Knight Silksong, one for you, one for your best friend. Just do that. Just do that. Silksong's great. I've put 90 hours into it, and I haven't even gotten all the achievements yet. That's all I had to say. I love Silksong. At this point, we should probably start rapid firing through the remainder of our smaller things, because we've taken quite a lot of time away from this one. So the Overwatch Championship Series has wrapped up a couple of its regions, stage 3s. Korea, Crazy Raccoon won. Big shocker. They're the best team in Korea, and they have been for basically the entirety of OWCS. They won the grand final over T1. Neither team is guaranteed yet to make the world finals because Korea is doing this weird thing where they have their top 6 teams from the playoffs go into a road to world finals event, which is just another playoff bracket. I don't understand why they don't just send their current top 3, but whatever. They're doing a second playoff for whatever reason, and that's happening in a couple weeks. China, on the other hand, is done. There's no second tournament. They are going to be sending Weibo Gaming, the best team in China, like bar none. They ended up winning grand finals over Team CC in a 4-2 win. That is going to be the 2 teams we see in Stockholm from the China region. I'm pretty happy it's those 2 from China. I think they are the cut and dry best teams in the region. So very excited to see them play in person because, again, these guys are going to Atlanta. I'm going to Stockholm.
Just to kind of wrap up all the news in the Riot sphere, I guess you can call it. We do have a little bit more information about 2XKO. We did get an announcement on October 9th that Razer has announced a 2XKO themed peripherals and gaming chairs in partnership with Riot. As well, the first tournament ever was held at Evo France. Wawa, Super Noon, and Sonic Fox secure first, second, and third in the first ever tournament. So massive congratulations for them for history making, being the first tournament of the new game. And massive shout out, I believe, Friends of Crack Media. I know I've worked with them in the past. Massive congratulations to EC. We're going to be taking over the Valorant regional circuit for 2026 for Finland. So massive congratulations for them. I've worked with them. They're great people over there. So expect to see some amazing stuff come out of that Finnish scene.
A big one, you've probably heard about this. The ESL Face It group recently has announced the suspension of the women's Counter-Strike 2 circuit ESL Impact after season 8 ending next month in November. This has kind of made a lot of waves, especially among fans of FlyQuest. Like FlyQuest Red, for example, is one of kind of the marquee teams in that org, but it's kind of made waves across the entirety of the esports community. Speaking from my own personal piece of the pie here, Marvel Rivals, we have a couple of prominent female players. Aramori from Sentinels, of course, is probably the biggest one. You also have some others like Mocha, who played for Reject over in Asia. We also have Valentina Eve, who plays for Dreamland. In a lot of women's esports players are without a job now. They don't have a place to play. And it's created this kind of argument back and forth of like, well, you don't need a specific space for women to participate in esports. They can just play in the main leagues, but then you have issues like with Aramori, for example, here in stage 2 of Ignite, where she's being heckled in chat about plays that have basically nothing to do with the backline of Sentinels, by the way. Yeah. So it's kind of this issue of people saying, well, why do they need their own specific place to play when they can just come play in the main league? But then fans and sometimes even players, Whippo, for example, in those main leagues also do not seem particularly friendly to female players. So, very unfortunate, but it does give me a little hope. I do feel like a power vacuum like that will be sealed by somebody. There will be something that kind of takes Impact's place, but unfortunate that it even has to go in the first place.
Well, that's just about all the time we have today, but don't go anywhere. We're going to be back in just a couple more weeks with more brand new news for you. I have been Gedster.
I've been Soren.
I've been Diatonic.
And we will see you in episode 3 of The Loading Screen.